Hey guys, welcome back. We are working on the Subaru Forester project. This is the car that I bought, not running, has broken timing belt, leaky head gaskets, and the valves hit the pistons. So today's sponsor is Partsology.com. I have a complete valve set from them. If you guys haven't used Partsology.com, they are a distributor for D&J Auto Parts. They have warehouses all over the country. If you order parts before 5 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock my time, the important time, then you get the parts the next day, which is kind of nice because that's faster than I can get them from any of my local suppliers. And if you order over $75, which if you're ordering valves for an engine and a timing belt kit and a head gasket set, you're going to spend more than that. It's free shipping. Anything less than 75 bucks. So if you're just ordering, one piece, one valve, a couple valves, or an oil pump, then it's like 10 bucks shipping. So still pretty minor. D&J is domestic and Japanese. But on their website, they do have European stuff as well, because I was looking at parts for a Audi the other day, seeing what they had. They had the timing chains and the tensioners and all that stuff. So my machinist was able to mill the head for me before he left town, but he didn't have time to do the valve. So that's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna take this in the other room and put it on a machine that will let us take the valve springs and stuff off very easily. Now we do want to be careful because this has already been machined. We don't want to drop it or scratch it or anything. Normally you would do that last, but because I don't know how to run the milling machine and we didn't have time to learn, I just said, just mill them, I'll be careful. So we have new valves. Let's go over to the other room, take these valves out, clean up the head a little bit. We do have some shavings from the milling process. And then hopefully we don't have to do the valve seats because I haven't used valve seat grinding stuff since high school. Normally I let the professionals do it, and currently the professional for this job is not here. So let's jump in the other room and get it set up. Okay, here's the machine we're gonna be using. It's a Quick Way head shop. I don't know what all this machine does, but it does one thing really good. And now that I finally found all the pieces I need, we're gonna set the cylinder head on here and use this as a valve spring compressor. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take 4 foam blocks. We don't need 4, man. Working on 2 separate heads. We only need 2 of them. Do you guys know what these are for? Probably not yet, because I haven't told you. These are going to hold the valves into the cylinder head for us. So we need to kind of get them positioned like so. Drop the cylinder head on top of them. That just puts a little bit of pressure on them. Make sure that those valves are sucked up into the head. Now, hopefully I don't have to pull my cam sensor retainer off. Can I get this around it? Would have been a lot easier if I would have. There we go. Okay, so this is just going to clamp the cylinder head down to the table. We'll have to get one on the other side as well, but that's going to keep pressure on those foam blocks and make sure the cylinder head doesn't slide around too much. Don't want to get crazy on that until I get the other clamp on. Next step is to put this little adapter in the chuck, which we have to tighten up. As you can see, I'm certified professional when it comes to this. That's not right. Now I'm going to use this just like a drill press. Now this isn't going to be spinning, but I have a nice handle. I can lower this down onto the valve springs. But I need to angle the cylinder head in order to depress those. So if I can remember how to do that, then we should be good to go. Okay, I had to reposition the clamps a little bit. Then I can roll this up until the valves are facing straight up and down. I'm gonna lock it in place. Of course, there's gonna be some air hissing the whole time, but we'll just have to deal with that. Okay, now I need to line this up with the valve spring I'm removing. So I'm just gonna hit this air pressure foot pedal. It's going to float the table. Let's get this down a little ways so we can know where we're at. And just like that. Now let me turn this so you guys can see a little bit, plus I can see a little better. Now down inside of here, there are 2 valve keepers, and then we need to release those, and we don't want them to go flying. This is a very strong magnet. So I'm gonna hold this down in here as I depress this, and hopefully, sometimes you gotta pop it a little bit. There it goes. Those should just flop off to the side. Now anybody that has done this on a bench with a valve spring compressor is probably cussing me right now, because that looked really easy. I'm gonna hit the foot pedal again. Actually, I can take the valve spring and keeper out, or retainer. We can see the valve stem sticking out there and the valve seal. Let's see if I can move this over without knocking the camera off. Get this down a little closer. Right there. Pop it loose, magnet on the keepers. Don't want to lose them. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of the valves, and I'll have to move my clamps, rotate it over, do the other side as well, and then we'll go back to the other room and check out the valve seats. Okay, now that we have all the valve springs off, I can pop the valves out, and got to do them. Can't do intake and exhaust at the same time. There we go. That valve seal fell right off in my hand. Okay, so there's the valves out of one head. I'm kind of interested to see how bent these actually are, see if maybe I could have saved a little bit of money and just machined them. So we're going to jump over to the valve grinder, chuck a couple of these up, and see how bad they actually are. Okay, so there's an air-powered collet here. See if I can get that in there. So right here is a perfect example on, even though we had minimal leak down, why we want to go ahead and do valves. Now I could probably clean all these valves up, but if one's excessively bent, then I'd still have to order them. So I'd just rather order them all, that way I don't have to clean these up and polish the valve stems or anything like that. But you can see I just started grinding on this, and there's a pretty good ring where I made no contact. And then it's kind of a speckled pattern around here where the valve was just kind of beat up. So that could have been some of our leak down issues as well. These things do get used and abused. So we'll go ahead and put the new stuff in. Okay, I know it seems kind of redundant, but anytime you get new valves, you kind of want to make sure that they didn't get damaged in shipping, anything like that. So we're gonna check a few of these on the grinder, make sure that they are straight. Looks like they are packaged in a nice bag. They have a nice grind on them so far. I suppose we should make sure it looks the same. Height looks about the same, diameter's the same. It says on here, there's a part number somewhere. D&J IV 710, so intake valve 710. So at least they do mark it individually. So, in case you don't have the box anymore and you have a stash of these, you're like, wait, what was that part number? Does that fit what I have in my possession? Okay, now I'm not going to put the valve springs back on yet, but I am going to slap the valves into the cylinder head and give them kind of a little tap here. Just making sure it's riding in a good spot of the valve, from what I remember. So I'm just going to throw all these in there. I'll give them all a few taps. We are going to vacuum test each cylinder, make sure, each valve actually, make sure that everything is sealed up properly. If everything is sealing up properly, we'll put the new valve seals on. We will put the springs on and we will be ready to go. So there's a nice little accessory on this machine for grinding out valve seats and installing valve seats. And it's a vacuum tester. So it's got a vacuum pump, a little hose. We can, we'll have to try and hold the valves, stick it on the port, see if it sucks down. If it sucks down, then we're good to go. We'll put new valve seals on and reassemble. If it doesn't, we might have to grind the seats. Okay, so our exhaust valves are not sealing up properly. We only got about 14, is that what we were getting? 14 inches of vacuum. We should be, with the vacuum pump over there, we should get 18 if they're sealing it up, at least 18, normally 20. So I'm gonna have to touch up these seats just a little bit. I hope we can handle that. I think I remember how to use all this stuff. I've watched the guy do it 100 times. I've done it back in high school, but it's been a while. So I have a collet of sorts. It's a 6mm rod that goes into the valve guide. You tighten it down. This guy here is a chuck and a grinding disc or grinding stone. It slides down there. We're gonna hit it with a grinder that interlocks with those splines, and hopefully we can just touch up each valve seat a little bit and then they'll suck down properly. Or I'm going to mess it up a bunch. That would explain why it's not sealing. So you can still see some pitting in the seat, and we didn't hit the seat all the way around. So let me hit it again, see if we can clean it up. Almost got it. One more little bump. Okay, so I'm just gonna work down the line, touch all these up, and then we'll go check and make sure they all suck down. Go back to the suction tester and see how we did. Oh, that's a lot better. So we're right at 18. That's what I normally see when I come up here, because before we surface them, we always suck test the valves, make sure we don't need to do a valve job at the same time. Okay, so we have valve seals. We have two different colors here, green and brown. I believe the green's for the intake, brown is for the exhaust. We need to pull the old valve seals off first. One valve seal came off with my valve spring. It must have been a little loose, but it popped right off of there. Now they make a set of pliers so you can grab onto these. Give them a twist and pop them off. So we'll take all these off and then we'll get the new ones installed. Okay, the old ones had green on the exhaust. My first guess was wrong. Factory information says green for exhaust, gray for intake, but we have brown, so I'm assuming that the brown is for the intake. Do we have a valve seal installer? Let's see. We've got this guy. I think that's what that's for. So get the valve seal in place. You don't want to distort the seal or mess up the spring. Throw these brown ones on the intake. Actually, these pushed on fairly easy without the tool. Now that the valve seals are installed, we want to put a little bit of lubricant on the guides. So we can either put the lubricant on the valve seals or on the guides themselves. I think this is just some motor oil. Okay, now we can reinstall our valves. Now some guys will put the valves in first and then use a protective sleeve over the end of the valve to protect the valve seal from getting torn by the groove at the top for the keeper. But I just stick my finger over the valve seal and it kind of builds up a little bit of pressure and pushes that valve seal out as the valve slides through it. So I don't know if that's the right way to do it. That's just how I've always done them. Now we need to put the valve springs, keepers back on, and we should be ready to go. Okay, so I preloaded all the keepers in the valve retainer. Let's go ahead and get all these put back together. And sometimes if you preload them like that, they'll just fall right onto the valve, nice and easy. Sometimes not. Okay, I want to thank Partsology.com once again for sponsoring this video. If you guys haven't seen their website, I'll put a link down below. Check it out. Maybe they have the parts you need for your next engine build. Parts super quick. Next day, for the most part, if you order soon enough. If you're working late like me and you order, yeah, it might take 2 days. But for the most part, during business hours, if you order, you're going to have it the next day. I'm going to zip through the rest of these heads, get these keepers on. I got to grind the seats on the other head. Once I have these heads put together, the next episode will be putting these on the engine. I have a gasket set and a timing belt kit. We'll put all that stuff together and then we'll get that engine stabbed back in the car, make sure everything runs good, and find out what other problems we have because the car was not drivable when we picked it up. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and click the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.